Alright, so this is going to be Nesara Gesara. This is part, I don't know what part this is. Probably like 5 or 6. I didn't look before I recorded this video, but it'll be in there. Or maybe I'll just put whatever part, I don't know. But, so basically what this is it's going to be a review of some of the things that I've covered, and some things that I haven't covered, and we'll get into all of that. So, the Supreme Court does not have the right to declare a law unconstitutional. That right is to the states or the people. Mostly probably the states, because nowhere in the Constitution does it say the Supreme Court can say that this is unconstitutional. Alright, so to me that's very simple. I hope other people can understand that. If you want to challenge me on it, please, by all means, go ahead. Okay, the next thing is Congress does a lot of illegal things and we just kind of let it slide under the rug. For example, Congress, in order to make alcohol illegal, they had to create a constitutional amendment, which they ended up repealing it. So it doesn't make sense that Congress can just pass laws, let's say for example, to make drugs illegal. And that would so Congress shouldn't be just able to pass laws to make drugs illegal. They would have to create a constitutional amendment for it. But think about what the constitutional ban on you're a good girl. This Amber Joy, I don't know if you can see her because I'm looking at my screen. The alcohol ban created gangs and the mafia and gave them more power and everything like that. And that in turn increased the rate of crime. So what did Congress do after that? Because of an increase in crime that they created by banning alcohol, they passed something called the National Firearms Act, which allowed them to tax guns, because they couldn't outright ban guns even though they wanted to because of the Second Amendment. And Congress later on did pass an assault weapons ban, but that ended up getting repealed because Congress once again does not have the right to do that. And then I did go into detail about the Commerce Clause and about how Congress uses that to micromanage the people. And for all, it wasn't the intent of that was to open trade and make trade fair to the states. It wasn't meant to micromanage people. As James Madison warned, he said this about the interpretation of the General Welfare Clause. There are consequences, sir, still more extensive, which as they follow clearly from this doctrine combated, must either admitted or the doctrine must be given up. If Congress can apply money indefinitely to the general welfare and are the sole and supreme judges of the general welfare, then they may take care of religion into their own hands. They may establish teachers in every state, country, and parish, and pay them out of the public treasury. They may take into their own hands the education of children, establishing in like manner schools throughout the Union. They may assume the provisions for the poor. They may undertake the regulation of all roads, other than post roads. In short, everything from the highest object of state legislation down to the most minute object of police would be thrown under the power of Congress. For every object I have mentioned would admit the application of money and might be called if Congress pleased provisions for the general welfare. So, Congress is not meant to micromanage everything. And Madison also continued, in short, sir, without going further into the subject, which I should not have touched on at all, but for reasons already mentioned, I venture to declare it as my opinion that were the power of Congress to establish in the latitude contended for, it would subvert the very nature of the limited government established by the people of America, and what inferences might be drawn or what consequences ensue from such a step, it is incumbent on us all well to consider. So, that, came from the Founding Fathers. They don't want us to be micromanaged. I mean, think about some of the things that were put in there. They talked about post roads other than the regular roads. So, and a lot of people may not know this, but the way how the federal government got the states to raise the drinking age to 21 was that they put in a bill that if you don't raise the drinking age to 21, we're going to take your road funding away. Well, they shouldn't even be funding those roads, because unless they're post roads, apparently there should be regular roads and post roads. Apparently they're not supposed to merge. That would be one assumption that I would have reading about that. I would probably have to dig, more into that to be honest. But to draw a better conclusion. But from what that sounds like, they're funding the road system, and they shouldn't be. They're also funding the welfare of the people. They're also taking control over education, which they shouldn't be. Those weren't powers that were that the federal government was supposed to have. Now, the states, on the other hand, they have more control over that situation because of the 10th Amendment. The federal government should just mostly be involved with anything that involves disputes between states and other nations. They were not meant to micromanage us and tax us for every little shilling or a bit or anything like that. So, that covers that part. Okay, so the Fed. The Federal Reserve is an illegal entity, and it's a private entity at that. It's owned mostly by European bankers and everything of that nature. And they control the money supply, and the money is fake, by the way. And what I mean by that is they just create it out of thin air, and they print it out, and then they charge interest on it. And the banks also create money. Like, every single time that you get a credit card or you go in for a loan, you're part of the money-making process. And that money is also fractioned off, and part of it's held in reserve and things of this nature. It's really, really complicated, but just because of all of the smoke and mirrors, it's fake. It's not real. It has no value whatsoever except for that which you believe. Okay, so that should be taken care of. And then the illegal vaccine mandates. Now, the Fed, or the President, does not have the power to, the federal government does not have the power to make mandates legal when it comes to a vaccine. Courts have already ruled on this, like, prior-wise, back in, like, 1905. But they must allow an exemption for choice, whether it be religious or consciousness or anything like that. And even though that 1905 kind of says that they can override religion, I don't really think that they can, because you have unalienable rights. Unalienable rights. And those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, if anybody can tell me that the vaccine is 100% effective and safe, that it will not harm anybody, it will not kill anybody, and there is no documented evidence of that, then the government cannot force you to take it, because that would be like the government telling you to commit suicide. So mandates should be unconstitutional on a variety of levels. I mean, that one before. And those life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are things that cannot be taken away or given away. Those are your rights as a human being. It's kind of like I'd say like your contract with God in a way, or all, or whatever you choose to name your creator in a way, or spiritual essence. You have a right to live and to pursue the choices that you make, as long as those choices do not completely harm other individuals. And being unvaccinated does not harm another individual, especially when people with a vaccine are getting infected or falling down or whatever these days. So the mandates can exist, and if you want to fight it in court, that's the route that you should go. The other thing, and I'm going to cover this probably in my Clown World News, is questions about the virus I isolate. You know, they didn't do that in the beginning, and that is an important step for evidence. And it seems like it was biologically created from the video and documentation on a certain paper that I have seen and read, and I will show you that video on my Clown World News. But other than that, you know, this is just my opinion. Remember, I'm not real, and you shouldn't listen to anything I say. But other than that, y'all have a good one. I will continue with the whole Nesara Gesara thing, but I just wanted to do a little review before I continue. Oh yeah, and like things like one thing I forgot to add that I wanted to add, like there could also be a debate whether driver license are legal, because driver license can restrict travel between states, and there's been previous rulings about like how you shouldn't have to be licensed to drive an automobile, and it's a free road and things of that nature. Why should you have to basically be licensed to do that? But I'm going to go ahead and let everybody go and get out of here, because I got things to do too. I hope you enjoyed this, almost 15-minute video, like 14 minutes. But hey, you guys have a good one. Clown World News will be next. I don't know when, because I like to keep everybody guessing. Alright, see you all later. Peace. Bye.